Weekend, of course, we've seen the horrendous attempted assassination of Donald Trump. You know, like all of you, I watched this moment unfold. Let's just recap it for anyone that actually, I don't know where you will have been if you haven't seen this by now. But look, of course, he was speaking at a rally and then shot, quite frankly. I mean, I saw this unfolding. I couldn't believe my eyes, couldn't believe my ears. Absolutely shocking scenes. And then when you actually look a kind of aerial breakdown as well, which I'll show you in a second, it's really, really quite staggering. And people are picking up a lot on this. I mean, look at the close proximity of that guy. To be on that roof in such close proximity, there are massive questions to be asked as to the failures, as to various different services, I would say, as to how on earth this was allowed to happen. I want to come in a second, actually, to the conversation that we have in the media internationally and also here at home about Donald Trump, because I think the media, lots of them, have huge questions to answer today. They need to reflect on the role that they might have played in whipping up hatred. But before I get to that element, don't worry, I'm coming to that. What did you actually think, Zia, when you saw these scenes unfold?
Well, obviously, they're shocking scenes. And sadly, unfortunately, it's not actually a surprise. I think the fact that President Trump has been constantly attacked, the constant ad hominem demonization of President Trump, calling him the new Hitler, calling him a fascist, essentially calling him a threat to democracy and a threat to the country. By the way, those words coming from the current president of the United States and generally the mainstream media. So when you have that kind of rhetoric and that kind of invective, it all leads us to a situation where, unfortunately, you're going to have people like this who try to carry out atrocities.
Well, you mentioned some of the rhetoric, so let me just show you some of the rhetoric, because I would argue now for years and years, Donald Trump has been subjected to absolutely appalling characterization by a variety of media outlets. I mean, look, this is a New Republic, and if you're listening on the radio, I'll tell you, it's the front cover that they've mocked up. They openly admit that they based it on a Hitler campaign poster and basically mocking him up, calling him the American fascist. You go to Der Spiegel. This one, I mean, it is just absolutely appalling. This is a German publication. They've got Donald Trump there. Essentially, I would say, mocked him up to be like a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Their headline, if I translate it, it says, "The true face of Donald Trump." I mean, we can continue because it's not just internationally. You can bring it over to the UK. You've got Sky News, for example, after the assassination attempt. Let me show you one of the things that they tweeted out. They're saying that nothing justifies an assassination bid, but did Trump play a part in changing the rules of engagement? I mean, sorry. Let me continue, everyone. There's more. Are you sitting comfortably? Get yourself strapped in, because look at this. This is from a BBC journalist. He says, this was on Twitter, "If I was Biden, I'd hurry up and have Trump murdered on the basis that he is a threat to America's security." That was something he previously tweeted out and then deleted. It's obviously recirculated. So now he's tweeted out this morning a tweet that I deleted, clearly satirical but deliberately misinterpreted, has been resurrected and therefore reproduced far more often than the original. "Not only does this now endanger me, but also maliciously seeks to obscure my intention, which was to deplore such violence utterly." I mean, so now he's very upset that now he potentially is endangered, but he didn't care when he was talking about potentially hurrying up and having Trump murdered. There's more, everyone. Look at this. David Lammy, our foreign secretary, he tweeted a few years ago regarding the Daily Mail story today, "Yes, if Trump comes to the UK, I will be out protesting on the streets. He is a racist KKK and Nazi sympathiser." I mean, I could go on, but I finished at 7. So let me bring Dr. Lee in. What's your thoughts on some of this?
I think we have to be a little bit careful. Whenever there's a individual murder or a mass shooting, or whatever, there's always some attempt to divine the motives of the killer. And what was he doing, and what was he motivated by? And there's huge amounts of speculation, which often turn out to be wrong. And at the moment, we don't know very much about the person that did it. I think we also need to be a bit careful about assuming that people are basically witless sponges who just do whatever the media tell them to do, because the argument then becomes about restraining the freedom of the press and restricting freedom of speech. So, this channel is broadly pro-free speech, as am I. And if you want to defend your free speech, to call Biden whatever, or to defend Donald Trump, you have to uphold the free speech rights of people who want to say, actually, Trump is a racist or a Nazi or whatever. You may disagree with that. But I think if we draw a link between, what's on the front page of a newspaper and somebody trying to kill somebody else, we're on a very dangerous, slippery slope towards an authoritarian society.
I mean, look, free speech, you can say whatever you want, whatever. My point here is, why are people likening, because let's face it, Donald Trump is not everybody's cup of tea, no problem. Not everyone wants him in power. On the flip side of that is a huge amount of people do want him in power. It's, free society, as you say. This likening, though, when you've got figures on the right of politics, there is this real rush to describe them as Nazis, fascists, and of course, yes, you can say that in a free society, whatever. My point is, why are so many people so quick, just because they dislike the policies and politics of somebody and disagree with them, to liken them to people like Hitler?
So, I think with Trump in particular, I think he is openly quite racist and misogynistic.
How is he openly racist?
Well, we could go back into his previous comments, but I don't think you really want to do that.
I do. You've just said he's openly racist.
Okay. His comments about Mexicans, for example, the fact that they're a kind of mass rapists and so on, there's plenty of evidence to support what I'm saying.
He didn't call all Mexicans all
Your question to me was, why are so many people...
But hang on, he's saying that, Zia's saying he didn't say that.
Well, I think what you're referring to is when he announced his candidacy for the presidency, and he talked about how Mexico are not sending their best, and he also said, and many of them are good people. So I think, again, that's a highly selective piece of extrapolation, essentially, in order to cast aspersions on him and to demonize him.
Let me come back to your question. Okay, why is it that so often people on the right, people on the populist right in particular, are branded as fascists? They have a carefree attitude with the truth and an insurgent attitude towards democratic and liberal institutions, which worries a lot of people. So Trump's role in the Capitol...
But you've just called him racist, and I would say that's a carefree attitude with the truth.
No, I think look, if you want an answer to your question about why the left and liberals use this term, then I'm going to try and give you that answer, right? Which is that this is about the moralization of politics. It's not about what you stand for or who you represent or what your platform is. It's whether you're a good person or a bad person. And this goes back decades. I remember when I was an undergraduate student, the term fascist was thrown around very, very lightly by people on the left to delegitimize anybody who was on the right, including conservatives at that time. This is not a new thing. Why is this happening? Because political contestation has narrowed really fundamentally, so that anybody who's outside the mainstream is very threatening to people in the mainstream. And the only way that you distinguish yourself and legitimize yourself is through morally. I'm a good person, I'm not a fascist. And I think effectively it functions as a form of blackmail to the voters as well. So you've got to vote for me in the centre, even though I don't represent your interests, even though I'm not looking after the country very well, because otherwise the fascists get in.
What do you think to that, Zia?
Look, I would agree that it's, that we have seen that for over a decade now, of the constant sneering at of the electorate by our political elites, the name calling, again, the ad hominem attacks. And if you don't conform to this very specific set of ideas, most of which are completely incoherent, then you must be racist or there must be something wrong with you. And there's little to no engagement with the ideas. I mean, again, I could not disagree more strongly that President Trump is racist, or that any honest, objective assessment of what he has said over the years could lead somebody, particularly someone who's evidently as smart as you, to that conclusion, frankly. And, I would bring the point back closer to home as well. Obviously, the leader of our party, Nigel Farage, who, well documented, we all know, he faces threats all of the time. He has had things thrown at him. And we had the BBC, we had Joe Brand say that, well, on the BBC, that why couldn't that milkshake have been battery acid? And when you go back to free speech, I mean, again, I'm very much pro-free speech. But the reality is, for example, David Aranovich's tweet, which you were right to bring up, that is an incitement to assassinate the former and probably presumptive president of the United States. And I'm sure you would agree that is something that is beyond the pale, wouldn't you?
But also, there does seem to me to be massive double standards, because I think if anybody, so Jo Cox, horrendously, horrifically, she was assassinated, murdered, appalling, absolutely appalling. If anyone for a nanosecond, I'm thinking back to the likes of the Sky News tweet there, said, you know, nothing justifies an assassination, but did Jo Cox, for example, being pro-EU, have something to do? There would be massive outrage. There would be huge outrage. If somebody turned around and said about a left-wing person, oh, it's a shame that that person had a milkshake, I wish it was battery acid, there would be huge outrage. In fact, I've got myself on my soapbox, everyone. I'm going to take a break and I'll come back to it, because I know that you guys will have very strong opinions on this. What do you make to this? Is this just harmless free speech, or is there something a little bit more sinister going on? Many of you as well getting in touch saying, are you going to be discussing these new immigration figures?